This is from systemsarchitect.io. Thanks for checking out our info on AWS Comprehend strategies. Subscribe to the channel and like this video. It's greatly appreciated. Buried. Inside your support tickets, reviews, and contracts is a signal most teams never actually read. And Amazon Comprehend is the service built to surface it at scale. Getting your pipeline right turns unstructured text into a competitive advantage. Getting it wrong means wasted spend, sluggish pipelines, and results nobody trusts. This video walks through 14 strategies for using Amazon Comprehend well. 14 AWS Comprehend strategies. 1. Implement batch processing for large-scale analysis. 2. Leverage custom classification for domain-specific analysis. 3. Integrate with S3 for scalable document storage. 4. Implement real-time analysis with Comprehend endpoints. 5. Enable multi-language support. 6. Optimize input text segmentation. 7. Implement error handling and retry logic. 8. Use async operations for long-running jobs. 9. Configure IAM roles with least privilege. 10. Implement result caching strategy. 11. Monitor usage on costs. 12. Integrate with step functions for complex workflows. 13. Implement data privacy controls. 14. Optimize model training data. 1. Implement batch processing for large-scale analysis. When you need to analyze thousands or millions of documents, calling Comprehend synchronous API one document at a time quickly becomes both slow and expensive. Why batch instead of calling one document at a time? Batch processing jobs using AY synchronous APIs point Comprehend at a large collection of documents. They work through them in parallel without your application managing individual requests. This approach is more cost-effective for large data sets. It avoids the per-call overhead that adds up fast at volume. A practical tip is to group similar document types into the same batch job, since consistent formatting produces easier to validate results. 2. Leverage custom classification for domain-specific analysis. Comprehend's built-in categories are trained on general-purpose language and can miss the nuance of your specific industry or business domain. Custom classification lets you train a model on your own labeled examples. It teaches Comprehend the terminology and categories that matter to your use case. This produces far more accurate results than a generic model. That's especially true for specialized content like legal or medical documents. A useful strategy is to start with a smaller pilot model. Validate it against real examples, then expand from there. 3. Integrate with S3 for scalable document storage. Comprehend's batch and AY synchronous jobs are designed to read from and write to Amazon S3, making it the natural home for documents awaiting analysis. Storing source documents and analysis output in S3 gives you durable, secure storage without having to build custom storage infrastructure. Lifecycle policies on those buckets transition older documents to cheaper storage tiers. That keeps costs under control. An S3 event can even kick off a Comprehend job the moment a new document lands. A good practice is to organize your bucket structure by document type or processing stage. 4. Implement real-time analysis with Comprehend endpoints. Some applications can't wait for a batch job to run. A user may expect an immediate response to something they just typed or uploaded. Comprehend's real-time endpoints are built for exactly this, returning sentiment, entities, or classification results with low latency on a single request. This makes them well-suited to interactive use cases like live chat moderation, in-app content flagging, or on-the-fly sentiment scoring. Endpoints for custom models are billed by capacity. Size them to your actual traffic, not a guess. A practical tip is to reserve real-time endpoints for genuinely time-sensitive workloads. Route everything else to batch or async processing. 5. Enable multi-language support. Text data rarely arrives in a single language, especially for any product with a global user base. Treating it as if it does quietly degrades your results. Why check the language first? Comprehend's language detection feature identifies the dominant language before you run further analysis. That lets your pipeline route it correctly. Forcing English-trained assumptions onto other languages produces unreliable output. A useful strategy is to log detected languages over time, then prioritize testing accordingly. 6. Apprehend's APIs impose size limits on the text you can submit in a single call. Simply truncating long documents throws away content that might matter most. Breaking a large document into well-chosen segments keeps analysis grounded in coherent context. Ideally, that means splitting along natural boundaries like paragraphs, not arbitrary character counts. Poorly chosen boundaries can split an entity mention in half. That degrades accuracy in ways that are easy to miss. A practical tip is to keep some overlap between segments so entities near a boundary aren't lost. 7. Implement error handling and retry logic. Any service called at scale will occasionally throttle requests, hit transient failures, or timeout. Comprehend is no exception. Building explicit error handling around every Comprehend call keeps a temporary hiccup from becoming a pipeline failure. Exponential backoff on retries gives the service room to recover from throttling. Distinguish between errors worth retrying and ones that won't resolve, like malformed input. A good practice is to log every failure with enough context to diagnose it later. 8. Use async operations for long-running jobs. Some analysis tasks, particularly on large documents or big batches, simply take longer than a synchronous API call is designed to handle. Comprehend's asynchronous APIs let you submit a job and poll for status. That way, you avoid holding a connection open and risking a timeout. Async jobs are also a natural fit for batch and topic modeling, where processing time varies a lot. A practical tip is to use an event-driven trigger to check status. That scales far better than fixed polling. 9. Configure IAM roles with least privilege. Comprehend operations, like every AWS service call, run under an IAM identity. How tightly that identity's permissions are scoped has real security consequences. Creating dedicated IAM roles for Comprehend workloads, granted only the specific actions they actually need, limits the damage a compromised credential could do. This matters especially for batch jobs that also touch S3. Broad access to both creates a much larger blast radius than either alone. A useful strategy is to use separate roles for reading source documents versus writing analysis output. 10. Implement result caching strategy. If the same or similar content gets analyzed repeatedly, reprocessing it every time wastes both money and time. Caching comprehends results, lets you serve repeat requests without another API call. Use a fast lookup layer like Amazon Elasticache or DynamoDB. A sensible cache key, typically a hash of the text, plus the analysis type, keeps the cache accurate as content grows. A practical tip is to set an expiration policy that matches how often your content actually changes. 11. Monitor usage and costs. Comprehend charges scale with usage. Without visibility into that usage, it's easy for costs to climb well past what anyone expected. Setting up CloudWatch metrics for Comprehend operations gives you a clear picture of call volume, error rates, and latency. Tracking costs alongside those metrics helps you spot inefficient patterns early. A good practice is to set CloudWatch alarms on both cost and error rate thresholds. That way, problems surface before they show up on an invoice. 12. Integrate with step functions for complex workflows. Real-world text analysis pipelines rarely involve just one comprehend call, often chaining language detection, entity recognition, and classification together with steps in other services. AWS step functions let you orchestrate that whole sequence as a single visual state machine. That beats stitching it together with custom glue code. This makes it far easier to build in retry logic, branching and parallel execution of independent steps. A practical tip is to model each comprehend call as its own state. That way, failures are isolated and easy to retry. 13. Implement data privacy controls. Text data frequently contains sensitive information, whether that's customer PII, financial details, or confidential business content. Treating it carelessly creates real compliance and security risk. Why does this deserve its own step? Comprehend supports VPC endpoints, keeping traffic off the public internet entirely, plus encryption for data in transit and at rest. Filtering or masking sensitive content before it reaches Comprehend adds another layer of control. This matters most for regulated industries, where handling sensitive data appropriately is often a compliance requirement, not just a best practice. A useful strategy is to build a redaction step into your ingestion pipeline so privacy protection isn't dependent on remembering to configure it correctly every time. 14. Optimize model training data. A custom classification model is only as good as the data it's trained on. Sloppy or unrepresentative training data shows up directly in inaccurate results. Carefully curating and cleaning that data meaningfully improves model accuracy. Remove duplicates, correct mislabeled examples, and balance categories so none dominates the training set. Content and language both drift over time. A model trained once and never revisited gradually falls out of step. A practical tip is to track misclassifications in production. Feed the clearest examples back into the next training round. This video is a condensed version of what we have on systemsarchitect.io. See the full section there. Also, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more, and check the video notes for links. To wrap up, these 14 strategies give you a practical framework for building Amazon Comprehend pipelines that are accurate, secure, and cost-efficient at any scale. Start with the fundamentals of batch processing, S3 integration, and solid error handling. Then layer in custom classification, privacy controls, and cost monitoring as your needs grow. Getting these pieces right turns Comprehend into a reliable engine for real value from the text your organization already has. Thanks for checking out this video, and like the video and subscribe to this channel. Find a lot more articles and guides on both systemsarchitect.io and codeguides.io. Again, that's systemsarchitect.io and codeguides.io.